All right, let's try. We're recording. We're live. Hello again, everybody. We are once again going back over the gateless barrier, the Mumonkan. And we are all the way up at chapter 10, the 10th of 48 koans. So what we are going to do is the same as we usually do. I will read it, and then I will read it again more slowly with editorial comment, and then we will all talk about it. So here goes the koan. Seizei, a poor monk, is the title. So as for all the koans in this book, there's the koan, and then there's the commentary by Mumon, who is the guy who assembled all of these, and a poem he put together to go right at the end of it. So the koan. A monk once said to Master Sozen, I am poor and destitute. I beg you, O master, please help me and make me rich. Sozen said, Venerable Seizei? Yes, master, replied Seizei. Sozen remarked, having tasted 3 cups of the best wine of Saigon, do you still say that your lips are not yet moistened? The commentary. Seizei assumed a condescending attitude. What is his intention? Sozen has a penetrating eye and has seen through Seizei's mind. Be that as it may, just tell me how the Venerable Seizei could have drunk the wine. And the poem. His poverty is like Hantan's, his spirit like that of Ku. With no way of earning a livelihood, he dares to compete with the richest of men. So are we done? You got that? No commentary necessary? All right. So we'll go over it again more slowly. As with all of these koans, there's always some things to look for at the beginning. The first is looking at the players and looking at the nature of the interaction. And it is pretty clear here that the monk is a student of this Master Sozen, and he is in somewhat dire straits. This is a question, dire straits is probably wrong, but this is a question of intensity. This is a really serious question. So he's really coming forward with something deep from the heart. So that's what this exchange is. It's somebody who is desperately seeking guidance. I mean, this is 9th century China. So Seizei probably went from monastery to monastery, and he used to hike across these tall mountains in his straw sandals, exposed to tigers and lions and poisonous snakes. I mean, this is serious stuff. So it's a really serious, intense question. And the second thing is, and this will become more clear as we go through it a second time, there's always a tension in here. It's not just penetrating a word. There's always a tension in here, which is the dynamic of, it's like the manifest and the unmanifest, the absolute and the relative. There's a tension there because those are both equally true, but they're irreconcilable. So we have to hold these two things. They're the same thing, but looked at from different sides, the warp and the woof of the carpet, right? They look different. So the tension is holding these two things that seem irreconcilable. So finding that tension is also important. So here we go. A monk once said to Master Sozen, Sozen and Tozan, I can't remember their Chinese names, those are Japanese names. I think Sozen is something like Tsangshan. They are the people, the names that are the foundation of the Soto lineage, as in Soto Zen. So Sozen and Tozan. And they're from 9th century China. I'm not sure exactly where, but somewhere in mountains. So Sozen is a very reputable, learned, and by reputation, quite a gentleman. And the monk has a name, Seizei. Most of these monks are nameless, so I don't know anything about him, but clearly he's kind of an important dude too. So the monk once said to Master Sozen, I am poor and destitute. So this is a spiritual quest. Poor and destitute is pointing to him having dropped off attachments, him coming to Sozen bare and naked. And in that place of having dropped off to where there's very little left, he's feeling not just the poverty of renunciation, but some level of, he says, destitute, some level of anguish. There's some level of incompleteness, of loneliness, of suffering that is happening as a result of having let go of so much. I beg you, O Master, please help me and make me rich. It's like, so I've been practicing all this time. Somebody told me if I did all this stuff, I'd drop everything off and I'd find peace. My suffering would come to an end. What's going on? This is miserable. This is miserable. Give me the sweet stuff that you all told me was here. Make me rich. Seizei said, Venerable Seizei, and there's in these kind of question and answer, just getting somebody to call out yes. The question, who is answering? If you've dropped everything off and somebody calls out your name, who is answering? Because there's nobody there. And yet the answer comes. There's a couple of koans that are really deep riffs on this, where it's just somebody calling out somebody's name and they just respond, yes, yes. And that call and yes is actually really teasing out something very deep. So, yes, Master, replied Seizei. And maybe he realized what had happened, but probably not, because if he had, Seizei would have said something different. He may not have said anything. But Seizei then remarks, having tasted 3 cups of the best wine of Saigon, do you still say that your lips are not yet moistened? So there are probably all sorts of puns in the particular Chinese dialect they were using that are totally inaccessible to me. There are probably also lots of reference here. So 3 cups could be nirvana, samsara, and the middle way. There are probably all sorts of things like this going on in here. These koans are generally laden with cultural and Zen, Chan reference points. One I do know, the best wine of Saigon, that actually is the best wine of the village of Pai, I believe it is. Pai is how it's pronounced, or how it's spelt, not how it's pronounced. And that word means white. And so white in the Chinese dialects is the same as colorless. And the character for color is the same as the character for form. So this is very clearly saying you've had 3 cups of the best wine of no color and no form. Emptiness. The best wine, right? So you're here complaining about being poor and destitute, but you've just had 3 cups of the best wine here. How can you say this doesn't taste sweet? How can you say your lips are not yet moistened? So this is pointing at the tension, right? The tension is the poverty, the sense of aloneness and isolation and desolation, destitution, as he calls it, of having let go of everything, and the sweetness and the richness of not being attached to anything and not having anything attached to me. And actually, as a result, there not even being a me here for things to attach to. This is one of my favorite stories, which I quote a lot these days, the Mumonkan Sutra, where in the Hojo, the room where he's lying sick, Vimalakirti, who is a lay practitioner, is visited by a lot of Buddha's senior students. There's all sorts of arhats and bodhisattvas. And the arhats, who in that particular line of story aren't quite as enlightened as the bodhisattvas, they're in this room and the flower petals rain down, and the flower petals stick to the arhats, but they slide right off the bodhisattvas, because at that level of relinquishment, there's nothing there for things to stick to. So this is the tension between letting go of everything and not and so not having anything to engage in, and the feeling of loneliness and isolation and destitution, and the richness of actually that is peace. And okay, so this comes in a minute, I think. So Seizei assumed a condescending attitude. So what was his intention? What is his intention? So what Mumonkan is suggesting here, I'm not sure I like condescending. Humble, maybe. I've seen a couple of other translations, and humble isn't the word that's used, but it's more in that direction, the other translations. But the idea he's pointing at is Seizei, he has some inkling. Yes, he's stuck in emptiness. There's this trope in ancient Zen where, and it's actually happened in the mountains of China, so Chan as well, where the monk would have this deep dropping off and this profound experience, this, what's the word? The waking up in Japanese. Kensha. He'd have this profound kensha. He or she would have this profound kensha. And the master would say, okay, so that's good, but you don't yet have the use of it. Go live in that hermit's house on the hill for a year or two. Get your own water, grow your own plants. And when you've found the use of it, which means you're now back in the world and you're able to relate to other living beings, then come back. Right now, you have Zen sickness. You're stuck in emptiness. So Seizei, what assumed a condescending attitude. What is his intention? This is suggesting he had some inkling that that's what was going on. And in a way, he's kind of testing Sozan. He's coming to Sozan with this, knowing Sozan has been there before, and he's kind of seeing how Sozan will respond, seeing what Sozan has for him. Sozan has a penetrating eye and has seen through Seizei's mind. So mind is a key word here. And mind, it means lots of different things. Most simply, it means a human being showing up with a question and the thinking process, the cognitive process. But Sozan is no ordinary human being. Sozan is somebody with deep wisdom and deep insight. So this is suggesting that he's seen all the way through to the bottom. And he can see those last little blocks in the way, and he can see how to really nudge Seizei, and you can see all the way to Seizei's true nature. Hence the question, Venerable Seizei provoking the answer, yes, Master. Be that as it may, just tell me how the Venerable Seizei could have drunk the wine. How, by going through this process of letting go, reaching this place of absolute poverty, how that means he has already drunk the wine, even though he doesn't yet realize he's drunk with the joy of this place of peace. How could he have drunk the wine? First, in the process, how could he have drunk it? And second, how could he have drunk it and not realized the fruit of it? The poem, his poverty is like Hantan's. So these are more stories from the time. Hantan, I don't know these stories, but they're in the commentaries in this book. So Hantan apparently was a civil servant, and he had some family issues. And so he needed to give up his livelihood and go traipsing around helping his family and living in poverty and, really hand to mouth and begging. And he became like a juggler or something, fortune teller, something that wasn't a particularly worthy position in that culture when you're coming from the exalted position of a civil servant. So his poverty is like Hantan's. His spirit is like that of Ku, who was a renowned and famous warrior he won many battles and led many large armies, and right at the end he was confronted by a force that he knew would overcome him, and he knew it would be his death. And there's apparently a famous poem that he composed at that time, which is just a beautiful piece of poetry, accepting the inevitability and showing great courage and great spirit. So his poverty is like Hantan's, his spirit like that of Ku. What this is pointing at is it's the energy of what was his intention in the previous paragraph and in the commentary. So he's reached this place of destitution. What does he do with it? It would be really easy from that place to say, this is miserable. I'm going home. I'm going back to my mummy. I'm going to go back and hew wood and carry water and probably get married and have kids and just live an ordinary life. I've had enough of this nonsense. That would be the easy thing to do. But he has great spirit. He pushes forward and he confronts Seizei with this question. This is urgent to him and this matters. So he's not just got poverty, he has spirit like that of Ku. With no way of earning a livelihood, he dares to compete with the richest of men, who of course is Seizei. So he dares, in his place of poverty, to come forward to Seizei and say, help me. Please, help me. Just push me over the finish line. So that's enough of me talking, I think. What do you all have to say to this? What does it do for you? What comes up for you people? Questions, comments, observations? Ken?
Well, certainly and I think all of us can relate to the disciple, whatever his name was, the exasperation of it. You practice and you practice. I've always thought that one of the biggest hindrances, stumbling blocks to the practice, is unreasonably high expectations. You're going to have the experience of the Buddha if you just do this. And it's more of a lifestyle. You just simply do it, you practice it, and if you set a fantastic goal in front of you, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. That's been my experience with it.
Anand?
Actually, this koan brings up, the story of one of the monk goes to Buddha, right? He's I forgot the name of him. So Buddha was in his arms round, right? So he asked for 3 times.
Bahia.
Bahia, yeah. That's you have a great memory. Bahia. So this the quest is similar. I mean the spirit is similar. I don't know. When then Buddha finally he says something and he gets enlightened, or and then hit by an elephant or something like that. So yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's a similar situation. This person is in. It may not be similar, but it is. He did a lot of practice, and he is like a arahat, but not a bodhisattva kind of.
Yes. So it is it's similar and it's different. I agree with you, Anand. So the similarity, so the fleshing out the story, Bahia was like the other side of India, which is a vast country, just vast. Right. Like China, it's just vast. And these guys used to trek all the way across China to find the abbot. To practice, somebody would say, I'm done with you. Go see Seizei over that way. And it'd be like 500 miles. and your straw sandals over terribly dangerous mountains. So just these vast countries people used to walk across. Bahia was a very mature practitioner, and but like Seizei, he was just struggling. He wasn't quite there, and he knew it.
Yeah.
And somebody told him, "You need to go see this guy Buddha." And he's all the way. He's up kind of Tibet kind of way, Nepal. Go up there. Go up there. So yeah, he did, and he at a desperation, as you say, he hounded the Buddha when the Buddha was on his arms round, which is the time you can't get him. But if you ask him 3 times, he has to answer. And the answer he gave, the guy said, "So help me, help me. Where is the end of suffering? I'm stuck. Where is the end of suffering?" And Buddha said, "It is just this. When there is seeing, there is just seeing. When there is hearing, there is just hearing." You know, each of the 5 senses. Just this is the end of suffering. Which, in the vernacular of this tradition, is just sitting, which is one of the most misunderstood things. Just sitting doesn't mean I'm going to sit and I'm not going to do, I'm going to intentionally not do anything else. There is nothing else. It's just direct experience. No subject, no object, just direct experience. And the Buddha, in the same way as Seizei, saw through Bahia's mind. He saw exactly what Bahia needed and how to present it. And he presented that kind of that turning word, it was a turning couple of phrases, in a way that just clicked. So yes, he got run over by an elephant the following day, but it was a happy ending because this is what he needed to be completely released and find freedom. So then in this tradition, he was at complete liberty to just never come back or come back as a bodhisattva. I mean, he was free, totally free from samsara. So yes, similar and different, which is the way things should be, right? Not the same and not different. What else?
What was the last thing that Seizei said to Sozen in the story?
"I beg you, O master, please help me and make me rich." Is that the sentence you were looking for?
It was after that, the very last thing he said, after he's,
Okay,
was,
I'll read the whole koan again and you see where it is.
yeah.
A monk once said to Master Sozen, "I am poor and destitute. I beg you, O master, please help me and make me rich." Sozen said, "Venerable Seizei?" "Yes, master," replied Seizei. Sozen remarked, "Having tasted 3 cups of the best wine of Saigon, do you still say that your lips are not yet moistened?"
Okay.
Does that give you the line you were looking?
Yeah. I thought there was more after that, but I was thinking about, what you said about uh having experienced what he did and then, you know, not being able to know that he had
Yeah.
tasted the wine. And I feel like it's, I mean, personally, you can do these things, you can go through the motions, but you have to be present when you're doing it, you know? And I feel like that will allow you to easily miss the point of or the intention behind your entire action, because you're so focused on the end goal that you don't pick anything up along the way. I feel like I'm kind of going through that right now. I used to be so good at picking things up and I've just been kind of like floating along.
And so this is that place is actually a place where what comes the middle piece of the koan is really important. Venerable Seizei, Yes, master. Who is present? It's not being present. The question is, who is present? Because if I'm mindful and I'm present, that has already created a separation. That question, the spontaneity of that call response is happening before ego arises. In Japanese, they have this thing, the first, the second, the third nen, and the nen is the thought. And so the third nen is after you've gone through a couple of motions, and it's a logical thought. The first nen is instantaneous and utterly intuitive. And the samurai who fights other than from the first nen doesn't survive drawing the sword. They're too slow. It's that first spontaneous thing. There's another way I've seen this drawn out is somebody asks a question and looks carefully at the person who they asked the question of. And when the person starts to respond, you see the physical motion. They lean forward, their head moves forward a little bit, their lips start to part, and they just put their hand out to cover the mouth. It's that instant. If you don't get it in that instant, you've missed it. So it's who is present.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Seizei was stuck, because he hadn't got. There's another koan which points to the same thing, or to this particular thing. The ox going through the window. It can get its horns through, and then its head's through. It shovels its shoulders together, and it gets its shoulders, and then its front legs through. Moves on. It manages to get one back leg through, and then the other back leg through, and it keeps going. But the tip of its tail is stuck. It can't get the tip of its tail through the window. Why can't it get the tip of its tail through the window? Because there's just that last little piece of hanging on.
Yep.
So what Sozan is doing here is he's just nudging Seizei, so to bypass that last little piece.
Yeah.
And the answer to a koan isn't a logical answer, it's Kensha. The answer to the koan is actually letting it soak in and realizing that deeply inside oneself. So that's what it's inviting us to do. Does that?
Yeah.
Get there, Kit? Yeah?
Yep. Yep.
What else, folks? Kevin?
And so I was impressed or struck by the start of it, where a monk saying, "I am poor and destitute," is somewhat shocking. And so what I'm picking up then, so he was then called back to who he was. I am poor. For a monk to say, "I am poor and destitute," that doesn't compute necessarily at some level. I mean, at what point did he realize that? That's the definition of a monk, right?
Well, in a material sense, yes. But the trade-off you expect is you give up all your worldly goods and you go to the space of spiritual beauty, and everything's wonderful. And as Brother Lawrence said, you encounter God in pots and washing the pots and pans. It's everywhere. So that's the deal. But what Seizei experienced at this point, and this is the dark night of the soul in each of the, all of our spiritual traditions, this is a recognized thing that happens. There's this dark place where everyone's gone and you're not yet out of the other side of that valley. So he's in that valley. He's dropped everything off and he's not yet come out the other side because there's that last little piece he's still holding on to. So the poverty that he's talking about is code for that. It's not the material stuff. It's that he's not yet found. And most of the way through it, life was going well, but he's just reached this place where it's just dark and bleak. And he can't see how to go forward. And he's can't really see from where he is how to go back. And he really wants to go forward, he thinks, because that's where he thinks freedom is. Does that answer what you're dealing with, Kevin?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you. That makes it much more clear.
Good. Anything else we can speak? Anand, yes.
Yeah, Gareth, I didn't quite understand that asking the name, right? Not the name, what is it?
Yeah, getting the call response.
Yeah, like you know,
Yes, master kind of thing, yeah.
yeah, venerable something. So what are the that you said there it's a cultural thing, right? I am not experienced. I came across that one, so I just wanted to see.
So imagine this, if you were sitting here at this point, I would pick this up and I would chuck it at you and I'd say, and I'd just chuck it at you, I wouldn't say anything. And you would just catch it. You may fumble it, but who's catching? There's no thought. It's just pure instinct. Who is catching? There is no Anand there. Who is answering?
Yeah, so it is just nudging to see the response. He should ideally he should not. How he should be responded.
The response was fine, but
Yeah.
the question was, did he realize what was happening with the response? Because that response, it's the three nens I'm talking about, right? It's that response probably was a first nen response. It was probably a deep and utterly intuitive response without any reflection at all.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so it's an immediate, quick response.
Yeah, and the watcher, the liberated self, if you will, the consciousness that does not land, the mind that does not dwell, whichever code you're using for this. If that is present, if that is the one watching at this point, and you're in touch with that one that's watching, that immediate response is, oh, this is it. No me left. And we all do that all the time, but we just, what happens is when that immediate response happens, thinking immediately starts. Immediately. Somebody says, Anand, and you turn around and say, yes. And you're immediately thinking, what do they want? Who called me? What's going on? Thinking immediately starts. But if you're in this very settled place where you pretty much let go of everything, there's just the response and stillness again.
Did you say the response in the stillness or?
And then stillness again.
So, but the response is still spontaneous.
Yes. Is that satisfying? I'm not sure. Are we complete on that one?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else, folks? I'll wait a moment or two. We can finish up a little early if there's nothing else. Kevin.
So that's quite helpful then Garrett, that the pen and your discussion on. I think it really wraps it up. I didn't have to sleep on it to kind of get a taste of it like I normally do with most of these koans. So I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the awareness of just being aware. That guy, that committee member, as we.
That's right. That's just pure awareness.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, it's just what I'd like to do, since we've got a few minutes, is just to 2 quick rounds of offering metta to all beings. So however you want to participate, you just settle for a minute or just sit where you are. May all beings be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May they be free from fear. May they be healthy in body and mind. If they cannot have health in body and mind, may they be at peace with whatever comes. May they be held in compassion. May they be filled with loving kindness. May their suffering be a kind and a wise teacher. May they find joy and equanimity in this present moment, just as it is. May all beings be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May they be free from fear. May they be healthy in body and mind. If they cannot have health in body and mind, may they be at peace with whatever comes. May they be held in compassion. May they be filled with loving kindness. May their suffering be a kind and a wise teacher. May they find joy and equanimity in this present moment, just as it is. Sorry, you probably couldn't hear that first bell because I didn't have the audio set right. Your beautiful dog, Kit, was just sitting there staring at me at the end there. That's a fine creature.
Yeah, I think she's got a hankering to participate. I when we were meditating at the beginning of the session, I looked over and she was sitting up with just her eyes closed, and I'm like,
Really?
there she is, there she is.
She's a beautiful dog.
She's a good girl.
And it's good to meet you. Glad you could join us.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful evening. See you all soon.